I must apologise that this video is likely to be a little shorter than usual. Several reasons for that. One of the main ones is that this week, just gone, we have actually had a heat wave in the UK. Those of us who live in the UK or know realise that we don't handle hot weather that well, unfortunately. So it's got up to like 36 or 37 degrees centigrade, centigrade in my shed where the lathe and tools are, which means that at my age and recovering cancer, I'm not really done that well. So the other thing, I've noticed some things while working on the gearbox, specifically the slipped cap on the end of the swinging arm, and when I took that off, no oil came out whatsoever. And the issue with the side stand, which one of my kind subscribers also pointed out, whereby the rubber stop that actually should sit against the frame rail and position the side stand in the correct position wasn't hitting the frame rail. Interestingly, the play in the end of the bush in the swinging arm is about 0.1 of an inch, but of course the actual stop is 10 inches away, so that equates to approximately an inch of play, which I've actually measured. And of course the frame rail at that point that the stop should be hitting against is also an inch diameter, so well, yeah, I'm hiding to nothing there. So I have actually recorded, and in the process of recording, the fixes that I've done for the swinging arm and the fixes that I've done for the side stand, and I will produce that video for Monday. And then I must admit, in some ways, I'm a little bit reluctant to finish off the gearbox because I'm sort of worried that I won't have fixed it, and then I have to realign my ideas and do something else, I guess. So so that's where we are, and I enjoy the video, hopefully. The swinging arm end cap is shown circled and has actually slipped down, so very difficult to see in the photograph, but there is a gap at the top. I have this swinging arm end cap kit from Andover Norton, but I had an issue, as you saw earlier, whereby the one end had actually slipped down and all the oil had run out. So the center cap is one that I have turned out of aluminium, and we'll see how that fits. I am now in a position to install the end caps onto the swinging arm. On the primary side, I will have this cap with the thin bolt going in there and the O-ring that goes on that end, and on the excuse me, on the other end I actually have the cap that I made with a 2BA screw hole in it, and there is a step that will actually stop this cap slipping down a bit, and then the step also crushes the O-ring by about a millimeter, should give me a better seal. And then obviously the long thin bolt, just drop the washer, that doesn't pulls it tight but doesn't give it any lateral support, hence the step. And I might do a cap for the other end that would potentially give me support. The reason, of course, they use the thin bolt is because they want the oil that goes in at this end to go all the way through the pin, which is hollow, to the other end, to then oil the bush at that end as well. And that's one of the reasons why they specify oil rather than grease, which you normally use grease and a grease gun, but in this case they use oil, so that it gets down onto the bearings, onto the bushes, which are sintered bronze, I think, so that they hold the oil. And they've specified a 140 weight oil. And a straight oil, not a hypoid oil, and they make that distinction. So I use Castrol D40, and I will put up a specification, and it's still available. You can still get it, and I shall fill that. I've actually ordered a syringe, so I can't actually do that until the syringe arrives. Because it's easier then to there is a bolt halfway along the swinging arm that actually supports the, not supports, but stops the pin from rotating and turning, and you take that bolt out and that gives you a oil level. I also have the Kegler modification, which is 2 clamps that actually stop the pin rotating as well, which then gives you a more robust position for the swinging arm. So it is then totally dependent on the isoelastic suspension alone. So I'm going to put this on now and then come back when it's done. So the cap is on, and I've positioned the screw hole near the top, and the bolt that goes through the middle is tightened up, and it is a 7/32 socket, which is quite small. Good. So we'll allow the 3 bond. I'm using 12-15 to set up, and that hopefully tomorrow or the next day when the syringe arrives, I'll be able to top that up with oil, and we'll move on to the next stage, which of course will be putting the kickstart on, which will then shroud that. According to the various forums and such like, the oil in the swing arm should actually stay in there, and because it's not pressurized, and last up to a year. They say change it after a year. I would be quite impressed to see if I've still got oil in there in a year's time, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. There's not much to see on the primary side. The plate just fits in. It's better supported because of course the boss for the thread actually holds it a little bit more in place. I didn't see any leaks from this side when I was when it was working before, so we'll keep our fingers crossed there. And of course you can actually see that the stop is actually just hitting the frame, but you know, there's very little play there, so we'll see how well that survives. I've got the primary chain case off, I thought I'd look at the side stand. The side stand is disappearing up underneath the frame. It's supposed to actually sit around there. As you can see, it is very worn. So the plan is to take it off, and I understand there is a bush in here which I can probably machine and perhaps make a bigger bush or something like that. So I'll get this off and then show you what it looks like. There is some play in the bolt for the swinging arm, and of course the play in the direction of movement is more. Not the easiest of things to repair. I shall look to see if the next size bolt could remount and see what size that is, so I shall measure that. Most of the play, however, is in the swinging arm pivot. In the centre of the pivot is a bush, and the bush slides into the hole, and as you can see, certainly in that play there is a lot of play. The suggestion is that the bush is non-circular, and I can measure that, and the hole itself might be non-circular. I will look to see if I have any more fossil bonds or whatever bushes, and then I could perhaps potentially go up in size, and I will look to see just how out of round the the pivot hole itself is, and whether I can actually repair that, so giving a much more robust side stand. I have reamed out the frame lug to 12mm to take a 12mm shoulder bolt, and it is not particularly tight, but I think it's tight enough. Unfortunately, of course, the hole in the lug is slightly elongated due to the way that the side stand works. So I have a spacer or bush, which in this case is stainless steel. I didn't actually have any fossil bonds, so I'm going to buy some, and that fits quite nicely onto the bolt, and I've made it slightly longer than the one that was in there because that one had actually crushed a bit and didn't give me any sort of clearance for the rotation. I have reamed out the hole in the reamed out the hole in the side stand. Got it stuck. And that is a reasonable fit in here. Not perfect because again the hole is elongated, so unfortunately it doesn't, it's tightening up for some reason. Okay, anyway, I will be assembling this and I have some grease that I've been using in the past, which is Luma winch grease for sailing ships, and it is saltwater proof, and I think is a quite good useful sort of grease, that it doesn't wash away with water basically. So we will grease the various operating faces. Grease the bush. Not sure what was going on there. So the bush is now in there. As you can see, it's a pretty tight fit. It's not perfect. Again, it has some elongation, and there's about 20 thou difference. You'll also note on here that the stops on here are slightly worn. They really could do with being welded up and made flat again, and that's a job for the future when I get some fossil bonds, because I want to replace the stainless steel bush with the fossil bonds bush. Keep dropping things, it's most annoying. Okay. I have fitted the bolt and tightened it up, making sure that the stop is this side of the frame rail, and it now operates quite nicely. Oh, I also connected the spring. When I first started doing it, I forgot to put the spring on. So it's now hitting the frame rail quite nicely and not going underneath. It could do with being just slightly taller, I would have thought, but I guess that's how they designed it. Right. I might at some point, when I take it off to redo the bush, I might actually just heat this section up and bring this up very slightly, but we'll look to see how much clearance I've got under the silencer for this sticky out bit. So I think that's a reasonable progress.